Let's see if that works. I didn't hear it say recording in progress. So let's see if it the audio is working. Nope. Okay, now it's working. So you should be able to hear me now. So go ahead and pop up the chat and you should be able to hear me. And go ahead and let me know if you can or cannot hear me. Okay. Use the chat and I'll put it on the other screen. Okay, good. It's working. All right. Now, on a blank piece of paper, without using your phone, without using your notes, without using your computer, write a for loop in Bash. Just guess. Do your best. On that blank piece of paper, I am not going to collect it. So I don't care what your score is. I want you to do this for you. Okay. On that 4x6 or whatever it is, 3x5, just write your best guess of what a for loop looks like in Bash. That is going to be the very next thing we do with our geoip is we're going to write a for loop. And I want you to write it on another one or on the back side once it works and save it. And then what will happen is because you've written it down, you won't forget it. And you'll find that this is pretty typical of most programming. You will need to memorize a few basic constructs like learning Lua and Go and Rust and Bash and Perl. There's a lot of similarities, but if you work between different languages, you are going to get confused. And you're going, what's the for loop in Rust again? It will happen. Okay. All right. Everybody got your for loop? Got your best guess? All right, let's write a for loop. And I'm going to write one that's very simple. Okay. First of all, before we get anywhere, I want to show you this command called seq. Seek or sequence. So if I say seq 110, what happens? Now I've logged into the Jeremy box, but I'm using the SSH client on the machine in front of you. If you want to, you can log in and use the Jeremy box and use your SSH client here. I don't care. But eventually you will find that using just the SSH client, it's faster, a lot faster. And it supports copy, cut, and paste and all sorts of good things. Even with Windows, it'll work to some extent, okay? So there's some flags in here like -n, whoops, sorry, -h. Notice it says, oh, I don't do -h, I need -- help. And it shows you what you want. Okay, here's a format, a separator, equal width, equalize width by padding with the leading zeros. Okay, so let's do that. What happened? The W space light. Okay, so let's go from 100 to 110. Notice it didn't spaces it because I'm not going past 100. But if I said it'll scroll by really fast, so you can see it generates a sequence of numbers. That's pretty quick, right? In Excel, right click, you drag it down and it goes click, 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 click. Same thing, okay? You will find that ideas like this just get percolated and rewrapped and put into pretty GUIs and, oh, it's easier, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, but it's still the same. So our for loop. For loop. And I'm simply going to call it for loop. So when we start a shell script, what do we need? I know, isn't this frustrating? I'm asking you questions like this, like you're experts already. And you know, it's like, how do I know what I don't know until I know I don't know it?
It's like Big Bash or something.
Yes, the shebang line. Okay. And then my convention, just because. So now what I want to use is that wonderful seek command. And I'm going to stuff a variable with it. And I'm going to simply call it my list. Okay. Now what's this doing? Well, I start with shebang and it says go run bin bash. And the second line is telling me the name of the file that I'm in, which is just, for me, it just makes sense. And then the next line here is run the command we just ran from the command line and take the results and shove it into this environment variable called LST. Okay. Now we're going to write the for loop. The goal is write a for loop in bash on a blank piece of paper. Okay. So on the back table, there's some 4x6 cards and you can sign in, but we're writing a bash for loop. And I want you to memorize it because you'll use this a million times. Okay. And the sequence is pretty much the same. Okay. So we say for, and then we pick a counter for X or I or whatever for X. And then we just say in $LST. And then here's the magic, do now I will show you some interesting things about debugging. When you want to debug, there's some flags that you can use up here at the very top of the line. This, I believe, is not covered in TestOut. This is how you debug a script. Okay. Use X to display the variables and V to make everything verbose. So I could actually, we'll have some fun modifying this throughout this evening, but we're going to finish our geoip script and we'll wrap it with a for loop. Okay. And you'll walk out of here this evening knowing what a for loop is, I hope. So I can give you a blank piece of paper next week and you'll be able to write it out. Okay. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to save it and exit. Type in bash for loop. Work. But notice the debug script didn't do anything because there's not that much to debug. There's no input variable. There's no read statement. There's nothing. So we'll save that for later. Okay. We'll come back to that. But this the bash debugging on the 290 lab site that's inside Canvas, where you read about advanced shell scripting. It's all in there. Okay. So that is our for loop. And what's the end do? We'll extrapolate. See the difference? What the end do?
I forgot the name of it, but like,
Yeah, it suppresses the carriage return.
carrot.
So let's have some fun with this. So when I run it, you can see what's happening here. Hex dump minus uppercase C stands for canonical. In other words, make it look like the old mainframe. Notice there's my ASCII characters, 31, 32, 33, and it's covered with, followed by a what? 0A, 0A, 0A. That's your carriage return, and you hit that thing. Okay. How do you know? And it shows you the list here. Okay. Go down to 0A. Tells you what it is. Okay, new line. Now, if I go down to 31 in hex, you can see it's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Okay. And yeah, you'll need to know these. Where you will need to know them more than anything is if you're doing network forensics or if you're pulling data off a disk and you need to recreate a file. You'll get down to the really low level of hexadecimal. Okay. So let's do that again and take out the dash in, or put the dash in back in and run it to hex dump. There's no 0A's, is there? Because we took them out. The dash in says suppress carriage return. So this is your for loop. Pretty easy to memorize, huh? Now that you can see it, so what starts the loop? Do. What finishes the loop? Done. In Python, your loops are started by what? Indents, right? C++ and Java, squirrely brackets. Oh, there we go. All right. Pick up where we left off. This is kind of where we left it last week. Okay. We started with this, where we changed directory to home logs. And then we ran this. Whoops. Would help if I do it correctly. Type in CD. One of those days. Now, if I cat. Remember this? Ancient history, all the way back to last week. There's a list of IP addresses. Now, there are several ways we can do geoip lookup. Most cost money. since we're school and we're cheap, we don't have money, we use the free version that comes with Linux called the geoip, and it only gives you the country. It won't give you city, state, zip, location. I will go into a slight side jaunt here and show you what some of these, oh good, that doesn't move out of the way. Boy, that's taking a long time. Let's use this one. So we'll go to Max Mind. This is one of many companies that works with your IP addresses. And you can buy, so you can put an IP address here. So of all those IP addresses you saw on a list, grab one, paste it in. Now you can use this from Chrome or Firefox or doesn't matter. So I'll use, I don't know, let's use this 194. That's in Russia. Oh, organization. Netkov Nikolay Androvich. Server Lux RU, corporate. Now, what's interesting about the expensive version is that they tell you if they are randomized and what kind of connection they come from. So you could do some forensics on people that might do a denial of service on your machine by saying, hey, this guy's got an OC3. That's really fast. Okay. Or a T1. Oh, this guy's on dial-up. I don't have to worry about him too much. Okay. That's an additional fee. Okay. We don't have that. Okay. But you can do 25. It used to be you could take MaxMind and the geoip and some of these other ones and write a loop, send it an IP, and it returns you the ad. It'd give you all this information. They don't do that anymore because they throttle it. So if you send them 200, you're going to get 5 and it stops. So when we did this as a classroom, you never got to see the results. So the workaround is this. It's a command that's actually installed on the Jeremy box. It's called geoip lookup. Okay. And then you can do man space geoip. They release a not so current IP list. Okay. And it shows you where they are and you can update it, but they don't update it that often because they want you to buy it. Duh. Okay. But this is easy for us to use because then I can show you how to use it inside a for loop. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to my bin directory here. Now, this is what we did last week. Anybody remember what some of these do?
Maybe I should bring in Starbucks.
The sort one, sorts them by numerical and then unique.
Yeah,
one
that's
gets
right.
like-
We got C for the count for unique. Tells me how many IP addresses are in the list. So if I get duplicates, it'll tell me 2. Or if I have 4 or 5, it tells me how many. N sorts it by numeric. And what that does is, let's do this much. I'll just open another window. Oops, would help if I get it on the right machine. Notice I changed the color of my prompt. Kind of helped me out here. So they are, there they are, but notice it says 100, then it goes down to 13. Remember that? This is called ASCII sort order. You can sound really smart when somebody says, why doesn't my database sort right? You said, well, it is sorting right. It's called ASCII sort order. But if you want it to sort by numeric, you do it, give it a dash in. And now you will get 13 up at the top. Okay. So you can see I've got some duplicates in there, right? So now I want to run it through, well, let's do this. Word count minus L. Means I got 65 IP addresses. Now let's run it through unique. And then run it through word count minus L. 43. What did I just do?
Oh, you got rid of the duplicates?
That's right. I removed all the duplicates. So that tells me I've got 20 some odd duplicates. Okay. So unique will take a sorted list and remove the duplicates. So if we want to see which ones are duplicated, we use the count option. And then we can see where they come in. Okay. And then we can run this through sort again. So we can see we have a few duplicates. This is Linux. Lots of little things that do one thing really well and you pipe them together. Okay. So in essence, what we've just done is that we've written a program without writing a program. We're just using the commands that are built into the world of Linux. Okay. But what we want to do now is put this into a loop so we can tinker. Okay. So here we go. Oops, I need to be in the bin directory. Oops. There it is. So what I want to do is, oh yeah, I do want to change that. And which one do I want? I kind of want the sorted and unique, but I don't really at this time want the count yet. We're going to do that next. Okay. So knowing what you know from our for loop, what does that do? That geoip list.
That's your variable.
creates a variable called geoip list. And what's in that variable? Bingo. So let's write a for loop. And I'll show you how to do this from the command line. And turn that off. So I think that'll work. Is this clicking? If you've had some programming background, this should be clicking. Okay. This should be easier than, say, C++. Not quite so gnarly in the syntax, right? It's still quirky, but not quite as bad. Okay, so let's do a ch mod +sign x geo. There we go. Address not found. Iran. Okay. Walk through the code here. This is a for loop. We stuff an environment variable with stuff. Okay. We sort it numerically, and then we get rid of duplicates. And we make our for loop. We spin through our for loop. And notice I'm using the echo -nx. Here, let's see. Let's do it this way. Set NU on line 8. Now, when you do that in VI, the set NU, it sets the line number, but it will not put the line number into your file. It's just setting your line, okay? So on line 9, I'm saying echo my IP with no carriage return, but put a space there. So when I do the geoip lookup, I know what IP goes to what country, okay? Or I could put a character in here like that. Doesn't really matter, okay? Notice if I didn't put that first echo in there, this is all it would give me. It would give me this. Is that what I want? Let's comment that line out. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Perfectly functional, but it doesn't tell me anything because it doesn't tell me what IP goes where. So I need to tell it what IP do I want. And that's what that echo in line does. We can have all kinds of fun. Now, here's something that's worth its weight in gold. Take that with a rather large grain of salt. In all the years I have been doing data stuff, never once have I ever seen valid data in a name, address, phone number, zip code, you name it. That was a vertical bar. Never. makes the perfect delimiter. So the problem with using a white space delimiter is it a tab white space or is it a space space? Different programs behave differently based on white space. Okay. There's even a programming language called white space. Go look it up, 99 bottles of beer on the wall.net, and you'll see a command and you print out your source code. It's all spaces and tabs and carriage returns. So how do you print it out? You don't. So it's the perfectly occluded. It's a scripting tool that is used more for fun than anything, but you can do some stuff with it. So yeah, white space does have significance, okay? But vertical bar comes in very handy. Now let's show you something else that we have. Let's go back up here. Oops. I'll just do it this way. Instead of changing directory, I'm just going to say cat and give it the fully qualified path name. Okay. All right. Notice how I'm using cat, or excuse me, awk here. Awk is a complete programming language. You can do all kinds of things with it. It works great for slightly structured text that is separated by white space of some sort. It can be tabs, it can be spaces, it can be carriage returns. Awk will work well. There is another command in this space called cut. And it works like this. You tell it what kind of field you want. So we're going to separate on space. Nope. We want field 1. Let me do that backward. Then we tell it what delimiter we want. Okay. Now, if I cat this all by itself, do you see some other delimiters in here? There's a minus sign here, right? I can use this. I can use the get. Okay. I can use the problem. Well, I won't say problem. Cut. The reason they wrote awk is because the commands cut and paste didn't work the way they wanted them to. Cut will slice a file apart, and paste will put it together. Okay. Just where you get cut and paste from copy, cut and paste, right? Same terms, slightly different logic, use a mouse. But this will also work. So I can say, let's use the delimiter of the minus sign and use field, I don't know, 4. Look what I got. The way it works with cut is your delimiter can be 1 and only 1 character. Okay. Awk gives you a fudge factor. So if our file had a few that had 2 spaces and a few with 3 spaces and a few with 5 spaces, it would still parse it correctly. Okay. That's one of those little notations that you're going to forget that you won't find in test out. And you probably, unless you're a Linux admin writing shell script, nobody's gonna ask you, okay? But the reason I'm driving home shell scripting and teaching you about Bash is that there are times when you have two massive systems and there's absolutely nothing in common except a text file. And you have to process those text files to get data in and out of those machines. It works, not terribly efficient, but it's exceedingly practical. And it'll give you a raise. Okay. So we can use cut. Now, if I do just F1, it doesn't tell me where it's splitting because my first space is right there, right? So I need to tell it I want the first space and then separate the fields on space and give it to me. So if I say, here's 1, that would be 2, that would be 3, that would be 4. So if I say F4, I'm going to get this much of the file. Let's prove it. Make sense? Kind of. A little bit. All right. Are we done yet? How many files do we have in the home logs directory? Lots. What are they? Gzip compressed. Oh, we got 2 that are ASCII. Wildcards will work inside of your script. This is in test out. It's also the same in Windows, Mac. You have star, which matches everything. And then you have the question mark, which matches a single character. Sound familiar or not? Probably not, because you probably don't know much about the command line on Windows either. But let's, for example, do this. Let's do ls on, let's see. We'll say asterisk and then say log. .1 question mark means match any single character. Okay. What if I want all the GZ files? Or I could just put in GZ, which is probably what I would do because then I know exactly what I'm getting. Sometimes you might, oh, I didn't mean that. Okay. But then how do I display that? That's not going to work in my for loop, is it? It's a mess. Okay. If your terminal ever gets messed up beyond, it gets foobarred, nothing happened, type in this. That's something that you will not find in print anywhere. You'll need to talk to some old graybeard to find about it. Okay. This is if your terminal goes completely nuts and wacko and your prompt is all messed up and you can't, nothing works. Type in SETI sane and it will reset your TTY to sane variables because your SETI, your TTY went insane and you can't see anything. That's exactly where it came from. Okay. And it won't hurt anything just to run it. I'm not going to mess anything up. Okay. So if it's a GZ file, let's do this, man. Search, give me something close to GZ, and let's see what I get. That doesn't look quite right, but it's close. Oh, I see a file called gzip and gzexe. All these on top I don't worry about because I'm using, I do know that GZ is a file compression utility. You will see two of them in the world of Linux. You're all familiar with zip, right? That's been around forever, but it's not that good as far as compression goes. You can make it better, but the two that are used primarily in Linux, one is called Xz and the other one is called gzip. Okay. Notice, compress or expand files. What do you suppose Zcat does just based on your assumption of what cat does?
It displays an uncompressed version.
Bingo. So what happened when we catted our file? What do we do? Huh? So can we go through the same thing? Cut field 1, delimiter space. Let me. Is it making sense? Tracking a little bit. Now, one of the things that I've done in this class in the past is I basically take your grade from test out. That's legitimate because you can go to school, you can go to other schools, and that will be the only thing you get. And you pass test out, you get your grade. That's fine. But you're not going to get a job because this is the kind of stuff you need to get the job. Okay. And this is, dovetailing this sort of stuff in makes the Linux class massive. And then it should cover basically a year, not just one semester. But it is what it is. Okay. So you get the idea. I can use Zcat now, right? So let's go back to our lovely friend here. So can I do this? What if I did this? If I put see what happens here. So it's only giving me the one. So what if I put an asterisk here and say, give me all of these. Whoops, that's not what I want. All right. What should we do? We know that this is going to work. Right? A little hard to see. Let me do this. What's that going to do? It's going to display all of the gzip files because I can do ls here. Right? So that's all of them. So maybe what I should do is we can, now there's 10 right answers to this stuff. I think what I'll do is I'll show you a way to use a temporary file, because then you can just keep adding stuff to the temporary file. And then we'll use that, shove it into our environment variable, do our lookups, compression, boom. Okay. But what we'll do to start with is we want to get all our data smashed into our program somehow, right? Right now, we have this command. I'll just leave it this way. It's going to put it into geoip list, right? Now, if I run the command again, what will happen?
Overwrite data from access log. And just put it
Yeah.
as a one.
Yeah. You're going to have some sort of variable crunching. Okay. You could do something like this. Create a different variable.
Then you get the output.
I think this works. It might not. Let's see. Didn't complain. So how do I prove it? Well, let's do a quick line count. Let's do this. See what happens here. Guess I should have put that at the bottom of the loop. Why is it only one line? It's because all the IP addresses are lined up this way with no carriage returns. Okay, that's not going to work. So I need to figure out another way to count them before I jump into the deep end of the pool here. So that didn't work. So let's try this. Word count minus L. And we'll do the same thing down here. But I'm going to comment out geoip lookup because I know that's not going to work. But the echo will be fine. That's fine. See what happens. Whoops,
Your for loop is broken.
did I make a mistake here?
Yeah, you changed it from
Oh, I killed the do. Hmm. Yeah, it doesn't know what or is. There we go. Well, guess what? Can you see that? A little hard to see. My modified says my access.log has 43 in there. And my log.1 is 79. Okay. So what's that tell me? That means my variables are appropriately stuffed, right? Now, the other thing I need to verify is it's looping through both of them, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't get this answer. So I can safely say, give me this and give me this. And we will sit here and we'll test it another way. So how many do we have? 122. What did we get in the original?
43 by 7.
43. So this is showing you we're good. So this mechanism of creating a new environment variable and making it part of the loop is working. So we do it one last time. What do you think is going to happen? Work, not work. We know Zcat's going to display our files. We don't really care what order they're in because we're taking duplicates and crunching them down. Okay. See what happens here. So let's run that. Whoa. I got 949. So I got a lot more. So let's run it without the word count. Oops. Lots of folks from Canada. United States, that makes sense. Now, what'd be fun is just notice these are all 162, 216. They're all part of the same group. I'm curious to see who that is. So I'll go over to my max mind. Oh, come on. And see what I get. It's 162. Hmm. Well, let's do it this way then. Yep. Charleston, South Carolina. Google Cloud. That kind of makes sense. Google user content. So that means looking at my list here, Google Cloud is my person that, or the company that's looking at my machine more than anybody else. Well, they have robots running everywhere. Okay. So now we can see this. Now, is there a way for you to protect your machine from foreign invaders? Yes. It's called fail to ban. FAIL 2, numeric 2, BAN. And you can configure it and say, I want these block of addresses not to touch my machine. Or you can say, I don't want anybody in Europe or anybody in China or anybody in Russia to look at my box. Now, I do not have it enabled for obvious reasons. So you can see people from all over the planet looking at it, okay? Now, we can continue down this road. So can I do some more sorting off of this? So what if I did this? And I'll just use cut in this example. And I'll say field 1. And I'm going to use the delimiter of a comma. Yeah. Actually want to get rid of that first line. So I can do that like I want a $. Let's go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see how that works. Oh, too much. Let's see what I end up with here. So it doesn't print anything. Let's see what 2 is. Oh, it's a blank. 3. Oh, it's splitting on the 1 should give me the, oh, it's because I have the vertical bar in there. Never mind. Do it this way. Field 2 with the delimiter. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So I have 33 address not found, which means they're randomly generated. And look at that. Okay. 75 from Canada. No, CA. Not California. These are country codes. Russia, Netherlands. What's China? CN or CZ? About 76 from China. Okay. Now, if I want to, I can actually run this through sort one more time. All right. There you go. We're seeing how many hits we're getting from the rest of the world on our lovely Jeremy bot. This is actually off jmk.net. Not so much, it's not off .org, because .org gets a lot of protection from the Palo Alto networks that's in the district office. Okay. So I don't have to configure fail to ban because they've already set it up to where Russia and China can't hack our stuff. Okay. So if I tried to pull the logs off jeremy.org, you wouldn't get anything. Okay. So we have what we would expect most people from the United States coming from our log files. Okay. All right. Now on your blank piece of paper, your for loop, you all know how to do it now, right? Write it down and I'll bring it up on the screen here so you can kind of see what we've been doing. This is our code that we got working. Take a picture and then comment it. Okay. Type it in. Make it work. So if you haven't signed in, make sure you sign in on the back there. And then when we meet on Thursday, plan on another white card. I might say for loop, but then again, I might not. It will be something that you will need in the future. Okay, that I can guarantee you. All right. So I will stop the share and then stop the recording.